Oh, they're in it now. The poop storm has hit, just like everyone thought it might. And when I say everyone, I mean everyone.
My hope and expectations is to make the playoffs. That's something realistically. We have a new leadership team. We're going to have a lot of young players. We don't know. You know, a lot can happen. We might struggle more than I want. I really feel we have a good young team, and I just hope we don't struggle.
Vince Lombardi said a long time ago, hope is not a strategy. Robert Kraft ought to know that. I mean, he's a businessman. He knows that you have to lay out a plan. Unfortunately, the Patriots' plan in 2024 was extracting Bill Belichick from the franchise after 25 seasons and then figuring out how things looked when he was gone. We'll see how it goes. We'll see how it goes. We'll see how it goes. That goes for Mayo. That goes for Elliott Wolf. That goes for Drake Maye at number 3. The Patriots have no real concept of what direction they're heading in. They're crossing their fingers. They're whistling past the graveyard. And to be honest, they had no idea how it was going to look. Well, now they're starting to get an idea. And the struggle, Robert, is real. Quick Slant starts right now.
Quick Slants is presented by your local New England Honda dealers.
Hello, Patriots fans. How are you? Appreciate you stopping by for Quick Slants. We got a lot to get to in this program. Yeah, maybe the returns weren't great, but there are perhaps rays of sunshine and hope ahead. Speaking of rays of sunshine, in comes Kayla Burton.
Hey, I see what you did there.
Goes freaking wild.
What's up, bud?
How are you, kid?
A little bit better than the Patriots right now. How are you?
I am also a little bit better than the Patriots right now. They are taking on water.
Yeah, and you know what that means? We need a game plan, which you have.
That's exactly right. We do need a game plan. First off, standing pat, the Patriots will be sticking with Jacoby Brissett. What do we think about that? Receiving help? Could there be the good hands people on the way? Fat chance. Bill Belichick weighs in just a little bit this week. And when we get to the B block, I'm going to be scrapping with Andrew. Andrew Callahan and I cross swords. What do you think of all that?
I'm excited for it. And until then, we got Quickfire. It's presented by your local New England Honda dealer. Drake Maye says, look, he's still relying on his QB to carry this team.
Quickfire.
Look, he's done a good job doing what we've asked. Are there a lot of plays that we could do a better job with? Absolutely. But I will never question his toughness, his dependability, his leadership style for this team, and that's what we need right now.
You know, it's funny when you hear Drake Maye, he doesn't talk about production or accuracy or downfield throws. He's talking about intangibles. And it is interesting to see that the Patriots are now at a point where intangibles actually outweigh production. This is what a rebuilding team is going to go through. And they actually seized upon Brissett, not for the production accuracy and chunk plays down the field, but for what he would be like when the poop did indeed, to refer to poop yet again, hit the fan, Kayla.
Yeah, I'm not going to refer to that one. But Adam Schefter, alongside probably many of us, they're wondering how long does Drake Maye really hold off until starting his top pick in the draft?
You know, Kayla, the interesting thing about this is I can't even summon the agitation if somebody said, why not just put him out there? It is not really something that people could feel necessarily adamant about, because I do see the upside of putting Drake Maye in. I still believe you want to leave Jacoby Brissett out there, let things settle, let the dust settle, let the offensive line stabilize, give him an opportunity to run the team, see if the production looks a little bit better when he does have some protection in front of him. But I also see the notion, Kayla, that if you get somebody who can buy some time and make some plays with his feet, do it.
Are you kind of, as Drake Maye, like creeping, through the back door a little bit here and peeking in the back, saying like, all right, we're entering week 5. Let's see what this kid's got. Does that register?
Yeah, it does register. And I think the reason it registers is because it looks so stagnant and so really stuck and uninspired,
okay,
for lack of a better term.
Well, We talk about the quarterbacks. Let's talk about some of their weapons. The Patriots wide receivers, they have totaled just 25 catches for 226 receiving yards. I mean, you can see it right there. Pop Douglas, he leads the way with 12 receptions for 94 yards. And then really, Tommy, it just kind of trickles down. We got 2 on the board, 2 catches, 2 yards. Polk, kind of, not kind of involved. What's up, and how do we get these receivers the ball?
Any shot to have Davante Adams involved, perhaps?
Perhaps.
He is asking for a trade from the Raiders right now. The Raiders reportedly will ask for a second-round pick in return. Here's the issue. I think the Patriots, Kayla, are in a position where they're one of those destinations that rise up in professional sports every once in a while, where a player would say, I ain't going, or I'm not leaving. They are absolutely, especially with what they're putting out there on the field right now. And that is the fear that the Patriots have to deal with, I think, as they are trying to rebuild this team. We saw it with Calvin Ridley. We probably saw it with Brandon Ayuk, although he's never on the record as saying, I ain't going there. But we would most likely see with Davante Adams, they're not in a position, and yes, I would give up that second-round pick in a heartbeat, and I'd take on that contract in a heartbeat. But to me, Davante Adams is going to say, no, not doing it.
You can tell they're not in a position, too, because Brandon Ayuk reportedly got the most offer from the Patriots and still said no. Yikes! Okay, we know this team clearly has every right to be frustrated, but the very last thing this team needs right now is a poor attitude. And the leader of this defense, he says, Davon Godchaux, some of the guys need a little bit of a reality check.
Interesting spot the Patriots find themselves in right now, because culturally they could be teetering a little bit. This is what Rob Mayo was brought in for, to inspire optimism, to have these guys all pulling in the same direction, to reach them and tap into their emotions. Now, if the emotions after a 1-3 start, when they are completely incompetent on offense at this juncture, and now the strength side of the ball, the defense, is looking for answers, guys are going to start to kick rocks. Guys are going to start to look at each other and say, well, I'm going to make a play because he's not going to make a play. And I hear Davon Godchaux say that, and my guess is he's probably looking at the guys who are immediately next to him. Keon White, excellent start so far to this season. Josh Uche, a productive player as well, and saying, you guys lost contain on the first couple plays. And that was one thing we stressed all year long. How do you lose contain? By veering off of what's your main request. You're not doing your job, and we saw Keon White do that. I mean, excellent player, but this is interesting when Godchaux says it publicly on the radio, how the response will come down.
One thing about me, and I feel like you get on me for this, I'm a little bit of an optimistic Nancy over here. So all hope is not lost for the Pats, though. That's right. Here's a look at the next 5 opponents for New England. Only one team, Tommy, one team right there has a winning record, and they'll be facing the Dolphins with Tyler Huntley at QB next week. So, optimism?
Fair fights.
Okay.
More fair fights.
More fair fights.
And optimistic Olivia. I was trying to think of an O name.
Nancy, yeah.
Yeah.
Optimistic Nancy.
Yeah, negative Nancy, optimistic Olivia. Olivia, there are opportunities right now for the Patriots to at least have a fair fight. Now, David Andrews being injured, that ain't going to help you. Now you have Nick Leverett elevating. Michael Jordan, he's a practice squad guy who was elevated. He didn't play last week because he's hurt. Sidney Sow came back, didn't play great. You're still got your pockets turned inside out at left tackle. So it's hard to envision the Patriots are going to waltz out there and dominate anyone, but at least they're not going to see Nick Bosa this week. At least they're not going to see Quinnen Williams, and they may not see Jalen Phillips, who was injured Monday night in the Dolphins game, which was, whoo, baby, not good to look at.
You know who else we're not seeing? Bill Belichick. But he had a little bit to say. He hasn't had a whole lot to say about his former team. Ironically, he's starting to share some of his opinions on their current operation.
If anybody can see a situation where there's no plan and identify it quickly, it's Bill Belichick, the man who decided that Jarrett Stidham and Brian Hoyer were the best successors to Tom Brady until Cam Newton came aboard and Joe Judge and Matt. I digress. It's interesting, though, when I heard that, as opposed to reading it, I actually concluded, okay, he's not really throwing nearly as much shade as I initially thought. He's just saying generally, they haven't apprised me of what there is as a plan in place, but if Mayo's saying it, there is a plan. To me, I look at it, and I think to myself, the plan has to be visual, not a timeline, not a date. This isn't like guessing when someone who's expecting is going to have the baby. It's when does it look okay to put Drake Maye out there?
And I mean, you would think maybe this week against the Dolphins, maybe. I feel like this is a much-needed win for this team, right? Like, you can't even, you have Tyler Huntley at quarterback, for heaven's sake. This is a much-needed win. Do we see Drake Maye? I kind of like your point. Maybe not yet. Time now from
The
stands, baby.
Get him out of there!
I actually think he's doing pretty good. I'd say leave him.
I kind of like that little voiceover thingy I did. I really do. All right, I put a poll out on Twitter today. We had a ton of responses, 1,800. We also had 111 comments. Can't block, can't throw, can't score, can't use Drake even if they wanted to. Now do you people see why I thought trading down in the draft and taking a tackle, wide receiver, or quarterback was a smart play rather than putting all your eggs in Drake's basket? You can see the numbers there. Also, we have a live poll that's going to be popping up in just a second if you want to get some real-time results in as well. Kayla?
All right, let's see the comments, because we did have a lot today. Ryan Pello, we appreciate you. We know you're on here often. He disagrees, though, writing, you can't pass on a potential generational talent at QB to take a potential generational talent at OT. QB is everything in this league, and if you don't have one, you aren't going anywhere. Pat's made the right decision, and Peeps need to remember, this is a rebuild. It's going to take some time to get this team where it needs to be, including the offensive line. KO Diva says, I'm seeing your point now. Honestly, was hoping for better results in Foxborough with wide receivers and the O-line. Who knew the Sucktax Grim Reaper would be this unforgiving? KO Diva, always.
Good to have you back.
One would call him Bark Melhorn. I kind of like that there. Adds, either way, you're punting on one aspect of the team to think next year. I think if you truly believe in the quarterback prospect, you have to take him there because you don't know how many shots you'll get at that. God. Will still does not agree. Nope. It's still a bad take. You are banking on all those picks panning out, which in itself isn't a sure thing. And we all know how all the Patriots have done with first rounders. We knew this was going to take a while. And now everyone is second guessing because they are losing.
No, they're not. No, they're not. They're not doing that. And I would say this. No, there are no guarantees, Will. And I think we can all have a rational discussion, even though people like to get inflamed about it, myself included sometimes. You have a greater chance, I would argue, if you are able to take more first rounders than if you take one first rounder and put all your eggs into that one basket. I would add this. It's a scratch ticket. There's a $50 scratch ticket, which Drake Maye represents, and the other ones are $10 and $25 scratch tickets. So, to me, if you hit on that, great, you're going to cash in. If you don't hit on it, or if it takes years to find out whether you've hit on it or not, you're the Jets.
Wait, before I may scratch my corner because I actually have a little something to say to you. I don't think that you have to go with the quarterback.
Why?
Because the quarterback is the chef. The quarterback is the most important, you know that, the most important position, the point guard of the team. If you don't have the point guard of the team operating, even though it's not a great operation right now, forget the other pieces, because then you're not positioning them to be successful. And here's the other deal. The top pick for this team, we haven't even seen out there. So before we all start arguing or getting upset about, oh, I don't like this, this pick or this decision, we shouldn't have gone with the QB. We haven't even seen the guy out there. Now just wait.
I'm not criticizing the player individually and his skills and talents. I think he'll be fine. I think he'll be fine to real good. My issue is when you bring a player in at that position and then have to sit him because your team is totally incapable of protecting him and he needs so much honing, you're wasting a year of his rookie contract, and by the time he hits the field next year in year 2 of his contract, you're still sitting there going, Chase, I wonder what we're going to do at left tackle for year 5 in a freaking row.
I think we're waiting for, just hold off on Drake Maye, everybody. Hold
I'm fine with Drake Maye. It's the philosophical discussion.
I'm still picking a quarterback,
I told you I could get inflamed.
I skipped my corner to argue with you. Thank you.
Her corner was going to be about the Lions. And the point about the Lions that she was going to make is that they're doing great. And the Lions are a great case study for what the Patriots could be, because 2 years ago, the Lions lost 29-0 to these Patriots. Coming up at 6:30, tune in for our Bell Early Edition with training. Much more on the Patriots. Albert will be in the house, and the great Megan Arlini. Coming up after the break, Andrew Callahan's going to come in here. More bickering, more bickering, more bickering.
Quick Slants is presented by your local New England Honda dealers. Contact your local New England Honda dealer for a great deal today.
Wednesday at 6 o'clock, catch another edition of The Game Plan. Tom Giles and Brian Hoyer will get you ready for Patriots Dolphins. Game Plan is presented by your local New England Honda dealers. Welcome back to Quick Slants. Over the weekend, our buddy Andrew Callahan was out in San Francisco. He took a picture of Alcatraz, and he tweeted this out. The next person to suggest the Patriots shouldn't have drafted Drake Maye goes here. So I called him up. I wanted to talk about that because there was time where I said, trade down, Drake Maye, not ready. Take a listen. It's presented by Shaw's Perfecting the Art of Fresh. I want you to articulate what I'm trying to say. See, this is a good way of conflict resolution. Articulate what my misgiving is.
So your misgiving is you have this number 3 pick in a draft with 3 highly sought after quarterback prospects. You have teams willing to come up to you, give you multiple first-round picks, and instead of taking those assets and converting them potentially into a starting wide receiver, which you can't sign anymore in free agency, a starting left tackle, which the Patriots have not signed in free agency the last 2 years, you stayed there and took a quarterback whose performance is entirely really dependent on those 2 positions when you extrapolate out a whole offensive line and, of course, the receivers who he's throwing to. And you won't be able to play that guy because you don't have enough in the cupboard at receiver or offensive line. So we all do this waiting game when instead, in your mind, Tom Curran, under that handsome hair, of which I'm very jealous, that they could have drafted a quarterback later in that draft or next year, and in the meanwhile, built up that cupboard a little bit.
And your point is simple. How often are you at the top of the draft? To get great players, you take them before anybody else has a chance to take them. And if you're sitting pretty at number 3 and you have a guy who wasn't just good for 15 minutes, but was one of the best quarterbacks in college football the previous year, you don't look a gift horse in the mouth. You get him now. My contention, though, is that you are wasting his time as you waste your time. And you may never see the fruits of it because your team is so bad. Now, we could talk about divvying up the blame. Is it on Elliott Wolf, Matt Groh, Bill Belichick, Nick Caserio? Do you want to give it to Matt Patricia? Lob it all on Mayo? Whoever gets the blame, AVP. The point is, it's a bad team, and it's going to remain a fairly bad team, which means you're going to winnow away the ability to maximize that position because the other positions still stink.
Yeah, my argument would be this is 1 year out of a 5-year contract where he's going to be a huge deal. So that's 20%, sure. But in the meantime, you still get to develop him as we were talking about. And even if this team was ready, they might have said, we want you to develop anyway, because we know where Elliott Wolf came from. We know where Alex Van Pelt spent the biggest chunk of his career in Green Bay, where patience grows and then pays off, specifically at the quarterback position. Now, granted, the rosters there were different for Aaron Rodgers and now Jordan Love. They're different players than Drake Maye. But even when he was drafted, anyone listening, anyone studying the tape like I was, like Phil was, goes, okay, he's not a project, but he's someone who needs a little bit more seasoning. This might have been the plan anyway, even if they were ready to protect him in a way that's not allowing pressure and hits and hurries on 50% of their snaps right now, which they're doing for Jacoby Brissett. So I think this is fine, even if it takes a full year. I don't think it will. I think he'll start either later this month or next month.
I look at Elliott Wolf and Matt Groh and say these guys were part of a personnel department that really demolished this team through the draft, free agency, etc. And they're being replanted over here to continue running the personnel department. And I think that is, I understand the let's see how it goes approach, but they haven't been high yield individuals. So much of the buck stopped with Bill, and I'm not totally blaming the Crafts for doing it this way, but so much of the buck stopping with Bill, they had no concept of who's usable and who isn't. So this year is about finding who's usable. And to watch it unfold is jarring.
The Patriots right now are taking a much longer term view. Like Gerard Mayo said, his first press conference at training camp, I asked him, what's success like this season? We want to find foundational pieces, guys to move forward, not wins, not playoffs, not even winning as many games this season. And I get that. And I agree with it. To the point about Elliott, I know there were instances where he argued for players and just fell flat in his face because Bill disagreed, and that was that. Matt Groh, I think you can lump into the Bill way of thinking. I separate Elliott not just because, those instances where he got shut down, but because he comes from an outside place. Like he's an outsider working in New England who the day he got installed as a de facto GM, ripped out the old scouting system and put in a new one. And this is how we're going to grade the draft. This is what we want in free agency. This is our new approach. So I think that takes time, the Packer way, as it's been coined, to put into place. And then you have failed efforts we see that Bill would have never made in a million years. You know this. Calvin Ridley, here's a bag of $22 million. Brandon Ayuk, how's $32 million sound? Bill never, ever, ever, ever would have done that. Now, they didn't sign them, either of those players, but yeah, specifically in Calvin Ridley's place. But I would just say there's a decided difference between Elliot Wolf's vision and how he wants to run things and what Bill was doing the last 20 years.
All right, for more from Andrew and also from Evan Lazar from Patriots.com, talking about some of the X's and O's from the weekend, please check out Tom Curran's Patriots Talk podcast. Meanwhile, it's time now for my absurdly detailed and overly confident pregame prediction revisit. This one was actually good. Jacoby Brissett throws his first 2 interceptions of 2024. Trying to look downfield on one to Tyquan Thornton. That throw was really awry. And the Niners turned that into a quick 7 points. They win 31-13. And it's Jacoby's inability to take care of the ball that really has people up in arms. Again, though, another opportunity for Drake Maye to see the field at the end of the game. And he actually goes 6 for 8 for 71 yards. Sad to say, I saw it coming. I told you. A mad team at home that's actually pretty good hosting a bad team on the road that's got injuries. Not good. Meanwhile, if you want to see why I thought trading down in the draft and taking a wide receiver, offensive lineman, or quarterback was a smart play, or that combo, here's those final results that we had, putting all the eggs into one maze. Whoa, I can't see. All right, 58% of you. Meanwhile, stay tuned for Trenny. Make sure you check out Phil's next Pats podcast. We will have my Pats Talk podcast coming up later in the week. Enjoy.